Welcome to Speak of the Devil. My name is Reverend Campbell, and I've got a hell of a show for you this week. We're going to be joined by none other than Magister Frost himself. So let's cut right to it. How are you, my friend? It's great to see you.
I'm just fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And I do mean that because back in the day when I started doing all this stuff with 9 Cents Podcast in like 2011, circa around that time, I tried to get a hold of you and to have you come on. Just couldn't do it. So I'm very, very pleased that this ended up happening and we're able to talk about some of your new achievements and some of your past achievements. I think it's inspirational to a lot of people who work online and in online Satanist spaces. And we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, let me do a quick shout out to everyone joining us in the live chat. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate you coming in and chatting. If you have any questions or comments throughout the course of the discussion, just go ahead and put them up in there in chat, and we will try our best to address all of them that are reasonable. I mean, reasonable, No boxer or brief type questions, all right? To be clear, there's nothing on down there. That's why I keep it from here up. No, Wes, thank you so much for joining us, man. Lauren, it's great to see you, my dear. Gregory, thanks for joining us. Warlock Otto, good to see you. Dallas, my man. Valeria, Stephanie, how are you, my dear? Joe, it's been a long time. Haven't seen you in a while. Vic, great to see you. Oma, Jeremy, good to see you, man. And anyone else coming in after the fact, again, thank you guys so much. All right, let's get into it because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we don't have a lot of time to get to it. But we're going to go at whatever pace we have to because there's a lot that we don't know. Let me put it that way about you. I think more people know about you than they know. More people know of you than they know about you. So, can you give us a little rundown? Like, when were you first exposed to Satanism? How did that come about in your life?
Well, we go back to that far. I was 12 years old, and at that time, I started to, I guess, being raised in a Lutheran family, I started to question the religious practices that they had and being forced to go to Sunday school and church and all of that. So, long story short, I branched out and started researching other religions because I came to the understanding that if there isn't one religion, then there isn't one way. So I started looking into, Buddhism, Wicca. I bought tons of books. The closest religion I ended up with that appealed to my way of thinking was Taoism.
Right.
I really enjoyed the philosophy that they had, but it didn't quite click completely for me. So I was browsing in, I want to say it was a B. Dalton at the time, because this was, oh my God, so many years ago. And I saw in the metaphysical religion area the Satanic Bible. And I went, okay, curious. My interest is piqued. So I picked it up and I took it home and I read it page to page in one night, or from cover to cover. And it clicked in my brain. It didn't click in my brain that it taught me a new way or I was enlightened by anything. I looked at it and went, oh my God, this is how I think. This is how I feel.
Right.
This is what I want. And that's what really, I guess, brought me into the fold, was the fact that it wasn't teaching me anything or forcing me to be something. It was me. And I'm like, wow, there's other people out there that think like I do. And that got me to research more. So I picked up more books, and it ended up with picking up the Satanic Witch in the orange cover edition.
Yeah.
And it had the address for the Church of Satan in the back of it. Because I spent, probably close to a year trying to find out how to contact this place. Because it had to be a church, right? I mean, I'm a 13 kid. It's got to be this grandiose, cathedral with gargoyles and I mean, just rain and thunder and Addams Family type.
Yeah.
So I'm hunting for this thing. And every single church that we drive through or whatever, if the cross is just slightly almost like an inverted cross, I'm like, I got to find a place. If that might be it. But I actually found out from my mother's friends at the time that it was located in San Francisco. So I went, ooh, okay, all right, that's more information than I've had. So I started going through phone books for San Francisco. And never actually found anything. So it was the Satanic Witch gave me the address, and that's where I first contacted them.
So at 13, what was the response that you were expecting to have, and did it live up to that expectation? Did you get a response, I guess?
Well, yeah, when I first contacted them, when I was about 15, 16 when I actually sent the letter. And it was a very long-winded letter of, oh my God, I can't believe you people exist. I'm so happy. Because one of my biggest problems is as a child or a teenager growing up, you have friends in school and things like that, and you notice that they don't think like you. It's something about that like-minded mentality, and you try to seek out those like-minded people because the people around you do not satisfy you in the same way. So no one had the same thoughts and philosophies that I had. So it was very difficult to have discussions about that thing. So, so finding a like-minded group, I became, it was like a 2-page handwritten letter about how awesome and happy. So, and then they sent me back just the packets of information that you would normally get, which had how you join the organization, and I believe, if I remember correctly, advertisements for the magazine and the newsletter. I don't remember actually. It was like something.
Well, we were talking before the show a little bit, and you're telling me how there was like different colored stationery that you would get at different times of interacting with them, right?
Yes. It came on different colored and almost pastel colored pieces of paper, laser printed for the most part.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to first open up that it was a thick envelope, and you'd open that up and you'd see color, which is really strange because you're thinking, oh, dark and scary people.
Yeah.
So you open this tri-folded packet and you start paging through it, and you're noticing it's different colored pieces of paper, and you're like, wow. It clicks and it catches your eye and it makes you want to. It was very, very marketing wise correct.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. How long until you had decided to actually join the organization from that first interaction? And was it something that you were immediately just like, no, I want to be associated with this for some reason, or did it take a while?
Oh, no, it was within the first. It had to have been within the first year that I first contacted them. I know I contacted them, got the packet of information, waited for a period of time, because again, I'm 15, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. Then I believe I misplaced it. So I wrote them again, stating I believe I misplaced it and I would like another packet. And I believe over the course of the years, I think I may have like 4 of them. So
we were joking earlier about collecting the whole set and getting every colored pieces of paper.
The paper, you gotta have them all, like Pokemon. But after the second set, I had already, since being a teenager, you're working, blah blah blah. I had the money. Joined, sent it in and joined. Didn't even realize that you're supposed to be 18.
Hmm.
So I was just excited because I found this group of like-minded people. I found this group of what I've been searching for. And as a teenager, a lot of kids wouldn't, I guess, dedicate or work so hard towards that. But trying to find the address and everything, I was really on a mission. I really wanted to find people like me, because everyone I'd ever talked to in Minnesota, which is where I was from, had no clue. Their philosophies were all, some Christian based, this or that, or, they were, Wiccan based, and we all know how that is. So I needed other Satanists.
Yeah.
And so it gave me a name for my belief structure. And I needed to contact these people. I needed to talk to them. I needed to fulfill this dream that I had of finding like-minded people.
So what were your expectations met? Once you fulfill your packet and you send it in, and you're old enough and they send back your membership packet, how did you feel? Like, did you feel like you had achieved what you were seeking to achieve?
For the most part, when you received your packet back, you received your membership card, and you received the active membership questionnaire. And that was exciting, because that was, okay, now we're getting deeper into this. But the only thing that ended up lacking, and again, this is way before the internet, this is payphone era. How you contact other, there's no church in my area, like a Christian organization where they have a church on every corner.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to find these people? So after sending in my, active member application that had to be handwritten on like 37 pieces of paper, because there was a lot of questions, you're stuck with, well, what now? What happens now? And being such a young kid at the time, I did not come to the realization that it's, what you make of it. The organization's what you put into it. So, I'm like, well, do I get a phone list of addresses that I can contact people? Do we have parties every weekend? Whatever.
Yeah.
There wasn't. So as a kid, it was slightly disappointing, just because there wasn't anything more. But as I progressed, and as technology advanced and things happened, I came to the realization that it was what you put into it. What I did is what made the difference. So if I wanted to find more like-minded people, I needed to put in the work. So I started contacting people. I started finding addresses to, specific publications that were satanic, or stores that were satanic, and started gathering more information and compiling all that information up myself, so then I could figure out how to reach more people and contact these like-minded people that I was so desperately looking for in order to satisfy my needs.
Right.
So, how an adult would see that at the same period of time, I couldn't tell you. But because I started so young, I have a slightly different perspective on it, because you still have that teenage mentality of instant gratification and all that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think is so interesting, because though the outcome of that passion you had to connect with people is something that we are all collectively aware of, and we're going to get into, but that expression of needing to find at least one other person who thinks like you, to let you know that you are not truly this isolated alien on this rock, is not a foreign idea. And I think it's what a lot of people find. I think it's interesting that you had mentioned that you were, slightly not, I don't know, dissatisfied, but just you were let down just a little bit because of your own expectation of what this organization actually was versus the reality of it. Because that's like everyone, I think every Satanist comes into this thing and they have that same, and I think it's changed a little bit with social media and
No,
certainly
yeah.
with products that you've put out there because they get that experience right off the bat. And I think maybe it's a little hard for modern, Satanists coming into Satanism nowadays, or, post Y2K, who don't understand what it was really like back in the day, the vacuum of others that really existed. And so they take for granted, I think, in a lot of times, how special it is to actually find another human being that has any idea about what you think or feel on this sort of base carnal level, but then also could express it through the similar exact same religion. That shit doesn't happen. So nowadays it happens all the time because we have, everything is connected, even your damn toaster. But back in the day, there was nothing there. So let me ask you about that, because there certainly was this catalyst of your desire to put something into Satanism, as you were saying, to connect with others. And we see how that manifested, but what was that experience like for you from that desire? What was that spark from the desire to say, I'm going to start writing code, or I'm going to start a BBS? What was that like?
It was exactly that. It was, I came to the understanding that if it's this hard for me to find what I'm looking for, it's definitely this hard for everyone else. So my plan in that instance is I'm just going to make it easier. So I have the ability, the technology is there, to call it that. I'm going to try and make it easier for people to find things, because it is very, very difficult. I mean, even just to find the books, or to find the stores or the magazines or anything. And I mean, again, that's where this whole shopping thing eventually makes its way. It was, I mean, years and years of searching. And as you said, in a lot of cases, unfortunately, I'm to blame for making people not, I guess, appreciate the fact that they can.
This is your fault.
My fault. I mean, granted, as doctors always said, if you don't do it, somebody else qualified will. But it was going to happen no matter what. But since I'm the one who did it, it's my fault. I went with the fact of, well, I'm just going to make it easier for people so they don't have to spend all this years and years and years researching stuff, which the more I look back on it, that's actually the better way to do it, because it gives you the more appreciation for when you do find things, instead of having things handed to you on a silver platter, per se. But again, in this case here, it's going to happen, so I might as well do it so it can be done correctly as far as, I'm concerned, as opposed to somebody else doing it and not doing it as well. Or doing it in a completely wrong fashion, which then screws up everything. Right. So, yeah, it was, oh my God, I need to find a way to let people know. So I started an online BBS with 4 phone lines running into my basement in Minnesota.
So, for the sake of people who probably don't know, can you let them know what is a bulletin board system? What is a BBS?
Well, back then it was, you had a card plugged in. When I was 13, I first built my first computer, which was an X80 or an 8086. Wow. From parts I got at a swap meet. It took me 3 months to get it to boot because I had no manuals. This is my online world to tech. So, I mean, this is what made me love computers. Yeah. So I built this machine. At the time, Slackware Linux 1.0 came out. It was 28 colored floppy disks that all had to be installed in certain order of color. So you had, blue 1 through blue 4, red 1 through red 7, and you had to pop them in and out in different sequences to install the operating system. But that version of Linux allowed you to run a bulletin board system. So you plug in a 4-port modem into there, you connect 4 phone lines to it, and each one has a different phone number, and people dial into it in these wonderful, 300 baud, 400 baud, 30, 800 baud, 14.4 modems as technology grew up. 56K modem.
Yeah.
They would dial in under these 4 numbers, and then those 4 people could interact on this ASCII color, which was little symbols and stuff that made graphics. And they could either talk to each other if all 4 were on at the same time, or they could leave messages. So then you could have people calling in at different times, and they could all leave each other messages. It was a very small internet, basically what it was. So that's where it all started. This was a satanic bulletin board system called Satan's Playground. That's what I started it as, because I encompassed back then the world was Satan's Playground.
Nice.
That's where Satan's Playground came from.
Yeah.
So then once the internet came in, I had hacked my first University of Minnesota account because the internet was only available to governments and universities at the time. So by getting that, since I had not gone to college, by getting that account, I was able then to connect the bulletin board system to the internet. So that's
shit.
Come into the bulletin board system. So I had more users at that time.
Yeah.
But then and that was before the World Wide Web existed even. We were still using, news groups like alt.satanism and all those fun areas. But then the World Wide Web came into effect. And that's where I was there the minute the first page turned on. And I watched that system progress very quickly to where Yahoo was a search engine that was literally just a list of other addresses. Yeah. And you scrolled through the one page. It wasn't even like search engine. It was just a literal list of stuff. That's how it started out. So I went, that system makes my BBS completely obsolete. So I shut that down and I built my first website. And that is where Satan's Playground started out as a website. And that became a satanic informational page, not necessarily a communications or for people to be connected together. It was just, this is what Satanism is.
Yeah, I think I've got, and that's not the right photo. So let me see if I can pause this slideshow and get it back to the beginning. Because there's a bunch of different, oh, there we go. No, that's not right. There was a 1996 one that I have here. Gosh, is this? That's not it. It's before that. Well, anyway, point being that you have had so many variations from that very beginning BBS to your very first Satan's Playground website. I could have swore I grabbed one of those, but I must not have. At what point did it turn from informational to interactive? Like, when did you think?
It started to turn more interactive when there was more information available. Other sites started popping up. Other people were posting information or sites, and I wanted to take it a step further. Mm-hmm. So it started out as a whatever / some username. I believe it was like BAALACK, which was my old Dungeons and Dragons name, which was hilarious. Yeah, still a teenager at this time.
That's awesome.
So domains became available. You could purchase your own .com, and that was a huge thing. But they were, now you can get them for $2 a month, whatever, blah blah. Back then it was, I paid for SatanNet. It was, I think, $120.
Jeez.
To get SatanNet. So I was like, it was a big thing. And
Mm-hmm.
now that I think about it, I really wish I had picked up a ton more, but make some money off that.
Yeah.
I registered Satanet.com and I put it, on a server. At the time, I was working part-time at night for a global ISP. So he was an internet service provider, but he was also my friend. So I was able to host my domain for free since I worked there, and I had full usage of all the resources. So that's where, Satanet became, the one-stop shop for all satanic information. And it stayed that way for a period of time until I felt that there was so many other sites out there that were doing satanic information that it became boring. And it wasn't providing the resource that I wanted it to provide. And it honestly wasn't doing what I originally intended, which was bringing people together.
Right.
Find each other. Because literally, you went to the page, you found out information, and you contacted me. You didn't contact anybody else. So that's where, as technology progressed, there was, message board systems, chat rooms, just tons of different ways to start communicating with people. And that's what Satanet evolved into, was more of a communications platform instead of an information platform. Especially once the Church of Satan finally got its own website, which was still, many years later, but
yeah,
there was no more need for Satanet to be informational. Technically, there was no need for anything to be informational anymore because you have the source right there. And I discussed this with Doctor when I went and visited him, and we looked at, Satanet on his Macintosh. And I even fixed the Macintosh so it displayed the page properly. Looked at it, I went, yeah, that's not how it's supposed to look. It was pink, and there were just colors on there that I'm like, wow, I can't believe you. That's terrible.
It was like a misconfigured graphics card or something?
No, it was their version of, they had used AOL at the time. So in order to get to the internet, so I had to upgrade the browser that was on the AOL thing.
Right.
And once that was done and upgraded, the page showed properly and went, this is the way it's supposed to be. And it looked much better. I was much happier.
Can we put a pin in the story thus far? Because I don't want to gloss over your initial exposure or your first meeting of the Doctor, because ultimately, from when you were a young teenager, you have been arguably obsessed with this religion and connecting with others. Now you're actually meeting the founder and high priest of the religion. What was that like for you?
Oh, that was a evening that could not really be compared to anything else. It was amazing. Again, there's so much more backstory to the whole 9 yards of this, but as I progressed in the organization, and back then, again, this is my first interview in 22 years. But before that, I had actually been doing a lot of interviews on radio and TV, things like that. So I had sent copies of these interviews. Again, we were on Alt.Satanism. I had met HP Nadramia at the time, since she was the online liaison for that area. We became friends, talking, things happened, progressed, and then all of a sudden, one day I receive a letter in the mail, and I was offered a priesthood. And I want to say 22, maybe 21, 22, somewhere in that area. So that was huge. Oh my God, that was amazing. But just shortly after that, like literally within months, I was offered to come to the Black House. And I was, the excitement on my face. It's amazing. So I instantly booked a trip. I knew people out in San Francisco. So I had, being, a 22-year-old kid for the most part, who had never left Minnesota for the most part. I knew friends, so I could stay with them. They knew their way around San Francisco. So it was easier to find things, easier to get organized. And, I went out there, and the first, evening, I'm standing literally in front of the Black House. And it's dark, and it's an iron gate. Can't actually get to the house. You see one light in the bay window, and that's the only thing you can see. Other than that's all black. And you ring the bell, and they let you in, and you enter the house. It's a hallway, completely black. I actually ran into a box, I believe. It's quite embarrassing. We went into the parlor, living room. And that's where I first met Blanche. And we talked for a while, and then Doctor came in. And that, just to see him in the flesh after communicating with so many people and, reading the books, reading all the history I can on him, but to actually meet him, it's the most exciting thing that you could imagine, to see him in the flesh.
Yeah.
Just from all the stories. And we sat down and we talked for a majority of the night about everything. I asked him so many questions about his life stories. I had printed out copies of this magazine that I was working on with Magister Johnson called Goth Erotica at the time. Brought those to him so he could see how the magazine was coming to fruition. I had all of this. It was like it was sad. It was like a fan. I had stuff laid out because it was a coffee table. It was a nail coffee table, and I had everything laid out across it. Had my little film camera. And the entire night, the one thing I regret is I never asked to get a picture.
Yeah.
Leaving the next day, I was there for, it was almost 10, 12 hours.
Damn.
But to leave the next day, and, it's sun's just starting to come up, and I had to go find a payphone to call my ride because my friends were waiting for me. I didn't think I was actually honestly going to be there that long. I figured he'd be like, hi, bye, and, But it was such an amazing evening that I completely forgot to get a picture. It's the one thing that I can honestly say I regret, because I would have loved to have that memory. It was an amazing thing.
So,
and saved from being clawed by the cat, because they had a cat that was notorious for climbing up the back of you.
Oh, really?
Go over the computer, and I'm fixing stuff. And Doctor's sitting there next to me, and he's watching what I'm doing. I had no idea that this cat was sitting behind me, and he was staring right up my back.
Actually, that's a good back.
And all I see is Doctor's hand just right behind me, and he's got a hold of this cat in mid-leap. And I'm like, what?
Death by cat from the back. I often, whenever I run across someone who has interacted with the Doctor, I always ask them, and I asked the High Priest and High Priestesses as well. And it seems like the answer is clear, but maybe it'll spur some other thoughts. Did he live up to all of your expectations? It's easy to reflect on what the Doctor has done, who he is through what we've read about him or the stories that we've heard. But to your point, meeting him in the flesh, that's why people say don't meet your heroes, because often they disappoint. Clearly, it doesn't sound like he disappointed, but did it live up to the expectation that you had as a young man?
Oh, no, it far blew out my expectations. Had the evening been half as interesting and entertaining as it was, I would have been for joy. But to actually sit down, watch his body language, his demeanor, see the environment he lived in, see how he interacted with other people that were in the house. Even because Xerxes was, he was, I believe, about three at the time. There also, and to watch him interact with Xerxes was, I mean, magical. And I had sent them videos of, like my favorite, Disney-based stuff or whatever was Winnie the Pooh. And if you really look at the philosophy of Winnie the Pooh, it actually it coincides with a lot of what we believe in or how we live. So I'd send them videos of video VHS tapes, those weird things that don't exist anymore. And he would show them to Xerxes, and Xerxes would watch them, and I would get correspondence back about how heartfully Xerxes would laugh while watching these, and how much Xerxes enjoyed the videos that I sent. And just to see that in real life, other than just a written piece of paper, was magical. It was amazing to be brought through the Black House and to see each different environment that the man truly lived as he spoke. Truly believed the things he said. He when I first met him, he walked in a suit and tie. He unbuttoned his suit coat, and you could see the gun that was hanging underneath his suit coat, which, as a 22-year-old, you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, what house did I just enter? Am I going to be okay?
Yeah. Well, the crap that, he's been through in his life, with people picketing the houses, bothering his family just because of religious beliefs, that is a normal thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's protection of yourself, your family. So just, after thinking about it for a while to make it click, that added to the persona that he displayed. Even, and the gangster stuff, that he, liked to portray when he was younger. I mean, it fit his character perfectly. I mean, he even, when we went into the kitchen, he took the gun out, set it on top of the computer while we're working there. And I'm just like, I'd never been around guns. And I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty cool and interesting. It made the the evening interesting, and you'd read all the stories. So, you'd hear the stories of Doctor having the hole in the bathroom wall so he could, he had fetishes and things like that. So I had attempted to actually try and find this. You run through and try and find all these stories that you hear there.
Look for all the hidden doors and stuff. That's awesome. So if we can step forward, because you were mentioning that you were working on his computer, you got your website to display correctly. It seems like a no-brainer that he would have asked you to build the first Church of Satan website. Did that ever come up?
It really didn't. I mean, at the time, the technology really wasn't there, and I don't think he was really, he was interested in the technology. I just don't think he was necessarily interested in using the technology. And if you look at it, I mean, myself and other people had already been using the technology to do it. So it more than likely was not a priority at the time. It eventually became fruition. H.P. Gilmore definitely spearheaded that.
Yeah.
But, what his thoughts were on that aspect of it, I could not tell you. I just know that, as we were going through my site and everything, he was extremely interested in it. He was extremely interested in how it functioned. So he understood the technology and the benefits of the technology. But why, the COS site took so long to happen, I don't exactly know that.
Yeah. Well, like you were mentioning earlier, as soon as it did come to be, you realized that the purpose of your site wasn't being met, and two, there's no reason to have a purely informational site when the source exists. And so you did pivot into more of a communication based. I think my first interaction with your websites was through the chat room chat box function. And that, because I was stationed in Germany, or I'm sorry, I was stationed in Fort Knox at the time, soon to be heading out to Germany. And so it was when I first joined the organization, and just having that platform there where I didn't like get to know anyone, but it was really great to be able to just to jump on for a couple minutes. And of course, it was all modem based. And so you had those wonderful AOL connection sounds. So there was anticipation to it. It took time. You hoped your connection didn't die. You hoped no one needed to use the phone so you could actually stay on for a couple minutes. And that was my exposure, which was wonderful. Just knowing that there was someone like you able to build that platform that others like us could connect on is, I mean, like you said already, if you didn't do it, somebody else would. But still, would they have done it as good? Would they have been able to maintain the standard? What do you think are some of the lessons that you learned through those early versions of your platform that helped you later on? Like, just with the chat room, for example, because coming from alt Satanism or your BBS, certainly you must have recognized pitfalls and tried to hedge them off, or was moderation an issue? Like, how did you manage that?
Well, the number one thing I'd take away from the chat room was don't do it. The chat room probably was the worst idea.
There were fights.
The technology was there. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. There were other chat rooms at the time, not Satanic per se, but so I went, okay, well, we need a Satanic chat room because then we can all just start chatting right away and we can just have these grand old conversations. Yeah, that does not happen. Put that many people from that many places in the world all together, and you might as well just start handing out knives and just watch it unfold.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that something?
Biggest problem, because you're allowing everyone in. Everyone has a different viewpoint. Everyone has I mean, they're not even Satanists in a lot of cases, and they're all clamoring in there, and everyone's trying to get their word in, and no, my word's right, and I'm and just fighting and blah blah, and ban this person, ban that. Oh my God! And I'm just, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, the biggest thing to say in chat room is never ever make one in the world.
So you learned your lesson about the chat room, but then you did evolve into more of a social platform, right? So you had your forum first. Was the next step from that Letters to the Devil?
Yeah, the Letters to the Devil actually in the chat room kind of came about at about the same time.
Okay.
I actually believe the Letters to the Devil was actually first. But I wanted, in this case here, I just wanted quicker communication. Boom, chat room, awesome. That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
That did not last for very long. That whole thing got destroyed. There's even trying to branch it out like a forum and put different rooms so you could spread people out and have them do specific topics, and it never stays on topic. The forum is easier because they can post something, and it's a tiered response system. It takes a while for things to build up, and it actually is a lot more effort to reply to people, and so your detractor or your person who's going to give you the bad post is actually going to take more time to write it out and do it, and it's easy to delete. And people respond to it right away. So the forum was much easier to moderate, so it was more effective of a communications tool than the chat room was. And the chat room, I had felt that, compared to like an alt.satanism chat room that came up, and the flame wars and the fighting and it was a mess.
Oh yeah.
I thought I could make it better. I thought I could do it right. But that taught me that no matter what you put into it, you can't change how a person acts within it or how a person will respond to something given the opportunity for that instant communication. Mm-hmm. So it was people I couldn't control, and nor did I want to. I don't really want to control the people. They should have the common sense and the common decency to not act like school children. And, you know, I mean, just because the keyboard, which we all know, everyone who's behind a keyboard, I'm a big tough guy, blah, 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 I'll say anything I want. They act completely different than when you would have them in person. Yeah. It was the same thing when I would invite people to the conclaves that we used to host. They acted completely differently than in a chat room or on a message board. You could see the clear difference between in person and online. Mm-hmm. So the chat room wasn't functioning right, and that just got ripped out.
Oh yeah. Well, the forum, Letters to the Devil, almost became embraced by the organization so much that you had tiered access for members. And so if we can talk a little bit about that, because you know, there was this blanket statement out of the organization saying we don't support any, you know, online chat room or news group, period. And yet they did, at least in part, support Letters to the Devil in as much as they would interact on it and, you know, have conversations and such. Do you feel like there was any sense of responsibility that was greater, knowing that you had this sort of gateway for the organization to utilize? Was there a weight to that over some of the other forum places that you had already experienced with?
Not necessarily. I mean, throughout the entire history of the organization, you know, Letters to the Devil was never officially endorsed. It was never, I guess, officially, you know, brought under the blanket hole, which was, you know, it's how the organization wants it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a problem. It's not that I wanted to run an official Church of Satan forum or anything like that. You know, the Letters to the Devil, you know, Satanet forum was my lair. It was for my gratification of building a communications network for people so we could all discuss. It still led into I want to meet like-minded people. Mm-hmm. It provided me with exactly what I wanted, and regardless of whether it provided you or, you know, Joe Blow or, you know, whoever with what they wanted, it provided me with access to people. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've always wanted. So it eventually evolved into, you know, what my ultimate dream as a teenager started out. Yeah. So it didn't give me a weight on my shoulders that I had responsibilities. The responsibility I had is that the forum needed to live up to the standards of our lifestyle and our philosophy. It needed to provide communication and discussions on satanic topics. Mm-hmm. You know, and again, any type. I mean, we even had, you know, automobile topics, you know, things like that. It wasn't, I didn't feel I needed to uphold, I guess, what an official organization's forum would be. Mm-hmm. Needed to run it as it should be run. The reason why most of the people, you know, COS members, you know, hierarchy members came to there was because it filled a void. It wasn't the void that there wasn't any place to talk, because there were plenty of places to talk, but it gave you a moderated place to talk where there were constant arguments, or the arguments were easily settled and or removed before anything got out of hand. Whereas you go to alt.satanism or other forums that had popped up after mine, and it was flame war after flame war after, I mean, literally, I mean, hundreds of messages from people all yelling at each other, and nothing was getting accomplished. Yeah. And that was a void. People started to get really sick of the fact that nothing ever got accomplished. So Letters to the Devil comes in. It's a moderated area. It's, got officials of the organization. It's got people of like-minded interest, and we're actually having real discussions. We're actually, collaborating together on projects. I mean, that spawned so many different projects. The forum alone, allowed certain people to spawn off their projects and do these things, and everybody started working together. Things were great, and it was fantastic, and it was accomplishing what it needed to accomplish.
Right.
That's what its goal was. It's not to represent the organization. It wasn't to do this. It was to bring people together and accomplish something and allow people to talk to each other in a civilized, non-flame war manner.
And it really did do that with the help of moderation, of different moderators and yourself. Having that oversight, I think, is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, you do end up like every other forum that was out there at the time. But that was sort of the through line. So Letters of the Devil, it was so pervasive in online Satanism that I feel like other projects that you had started up were accents to it almost, experiments, if you will, not to diminish them in any way. But that's when the social media for a version of SatanNet came about, right? After LTDD had been a while. I mean, what was that like first creating a social network?
Yeah, and the Letters to the Devil forum, I branched off. I ran so many different domains. I mean, I had webmeaning.com, which was a satanic search engine for a while.
Oh, wow.
Personalsatan.com, it became my own personal site where my poetry and artwork and things like that were displayed. So it was separate from SatanNet because SatanNet was a communications network. I needed my own display network, so Personal Satan came out of that. There was COS Central. That I tried to bring more COS member-only collaboration closer together and away from the public. So COS Central is only accessed by COS members. There were so many domains. There was a short URL, whatever that Lipsy or Ipsy word like Twitter uses to shorten URL. I had one of those for the Satanists. I mean, any technology you could think of, I had it. I had my own satanic phone.
What?
Internet phone. They actually developed a device, and you plugged a real phone into it, and it connected to the internet, and you could assign every one of these phones a different phone number. So you dialed, 666, and you'd get a hold of me. From my desk through the internet, and you could talk on the phone. I talked to, Magister Lang all the time on this thing, and it was because I ran into the issue that I built this company called Baphomet Communications, and that was the branch off of a real communications network. So that's where these little phone devices came from, and I was like, I want to talk to people. I don't want to type. I want to have like phone conversations because video chat wasn't really there at the time,
right?
And cell phones were still not even in everyone's hands. So, I mean, I would call Canada. And it didn't cost you an extra penny because it's all over the internet, and we all had real phones and real phone numbers. I sent these to everyone.
Wild.
It was almost like having the bat phone.
Yeah. Well, can we talk a little bit about? Oh wow, we've already been going an hour.
I told you the whole night.
I'd love to talk to you a little bit about COS Emporium. How did that come about? What was that process?
Well, again, as Satan's Playground developed, again, before SatanNet, I had a section, just a one-page section called The Devil's Black Market. And it literally had just lists of addresses of places you could write to either get a catalog or purchase some book or some magazine or something. Mm-hmm. It basically brought, instead of having to look through a billion magazines or talk to this person or this person just to get one address for this new cool product or something that somebody's producing, I gave you one page that had it all. And that is basically how the COS Emporium began. Wow. That eventually molded into, as technology progressed, it moved into the Satanet Plaza. Now, when Satanet came around, I was getting tons of interviews. I was on, TBS, Newsweek, Time Magazine, CNN. Satanet became, with the Satanic Panic, it became, oh my God, it was a household name. And I was receiving 2 million hits a day.
That's wild.
The website, it was insane. Had I had a t-shirt to sell at that time, I'd be a billionaire.
For traffic back in the day, 2 million, that's insane.
It was insane. I mean, I was out doing, companies. It was really sad.
Yeah.
But again, I was getting so much media exposure. Marilyn Manson was around at the time, so I was sharing, screen time with him. I was sharing TV time with him. So that, helped increase everything because he was super controversial back then. Mm-hmm. So Satanet, I decided, since technology advanced, I was going to start selling the products myself. Mm-hmm. I was going to start, because in a lot of cases, to write someplace and wait for something to come back and then order, there's quicker ways to do it. So since HP Gilmore and HP Naremia had the Black Flame, I started commissioning, to sell the Black Flame. That grew into, other members' products. And eventually that became the Satanet Plaza. That I wanted to take that one step further and make it its own entity, its own store. So that's where the COS Emporium basically sprung out of. Because I also wanted to separate it from the store. It's not communication. So it didn't really fit on Satanet. Satanet was communication. So it became its own entity. And again, that's where personal Satan, everything started to branch off in its own entity.
Right.
When you have too many projects, this can't be able to happen. And I had way too many projects.
Yeah.
So the COS Emporium we started producing, I started producing my own stuff because you couldn't find this stuff. And I was just like, I want this thing, and I know other people want it. Mm-hmm. And from all my interactions with other members of the organization, I'm looking for this. I would love if this was available, or blah, blah, blah. Well, I had the means to make it available. So I did. So it started out very small, and it grew.
Yeah.
And, now it's become something new.
Did you learn new lessons? Because there, again, you mentioned it's a completely different entity. It's not a communications platform. It's actually a consumer, e-commerce platform. So were there lessons that you could take from what you had already done in the communications space and apply it to this in some way? Or was this just like a completely new entity for you to experience and the pitfalls that came with it?
It was a completely new entity. As far as the only thing I could take away from my previous projects with that would be is just the technology, or the knowledge I gained from the technology. But this entity by itself was e-commerce is a completely different monster, so to speak.
Yeah.
And anybody who runs a store will tell you the same thing. It's just, you got to have, still, regardless of being a satanic store, you still have to have customer service, fast shipping, good quality products. You're just like, a Best Buy or, the Barnes and Noble. Mm-hmm. You still need to have the mentality of a company. And that the only way you can function it. But on the flip side, I can also, since it's a satanic store, and I can also make it a lifestyle, not just a surgical steel store that has no feeling to it.
Mm-hmm.
I can still, I guess I could take some of the feeling of my previous projects, the heart, the passion, and I can still plug it into this online store and make it more than just a place to buy things.
Right.
That was always my goal. The Emporium didn't really accomplish that because I was still more focused on getting the products out and building the store itself, that I didn't put in the feeling and the lifestyle part that I wanted in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this new version comes in, and this becomes what my true goal for what the Emporium was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
This became it.
So we've alluded to it twice, but before we dive into what this new iteration is, there was an absence that you went through with both the Emporium, virtually all of your online interactions. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Explain, why you stepped away and what prompted you to come back?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it wasn't a total absence, but
not completely, but I did disappear for some period of time.
Yeah.
Actually, I was gone. No one could find me. Being who I was at the beginning, my hand was in everything. You couldn't enter a conversation without someone mentioning me. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I wanted it that way or anything, but it's how it ended up. But then I met a wonderful, beautiful woman, and we got married, and we had a child. And my number one goal is family. I felt in order to be a proper father and, husband, partner, I needed to focus my time and attention on my family. Yeah. And the online stuff, I mean, honestly, there's so many people out there. I figured it'll handle itself. It'll take care of itself. I was wrong, but but it'll handle itself. I'm going to focus on my family because, I mean, when you have a baby, it takes a lot of time. Yeah. It takes a lot of effort to raise that child. And as a Satanist, we aren't like the Christians where we just throw a phone in this child's hand and that raises my child and I can go and chit chat with my friends and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. God, you see people at supermarkets with their kids. And that's where everyone's like, I love my kids, but I hate other people's kids. Mm-hmm. And it's because you didn't treat the kid right. And that was not what I was going to do. I was not going to raise this child incorrectly. Mm-hmm. So I focused all of my energy, all of my time. I mean, when he was 2 years old, I was literally spending hours running around my stairs just so he could chase me because he loved that. Mm-hmm. I built him train stations and tracks, and we spent hours playing trains.
That's awesome.
Now that he is almost 8 years old, I mean, he is a polite, well-mannered, extremely curious and intelligent child. And, I honestly believe it's because I gave him the focus and attention and, the discipline of right and wrong, explain things to him. I took the time to raise him.
Right.
And, I would not take it away. If I had to do it over again, I would do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Knowing now that I left and I have basically had to start over, basically from scratch, mm-hmm. I would still do it again, because if you're going to have a child, you take the responsibility to raise that child.
Absolutely.
Or you don't. So that I took the responsibility and raised my child. Now he's 8 years old. He's gaining his independence. He does not want me around all the time. He wants to do stuff on his computer that I can't see. He doesn't understand that, being a technological person that I am, he's screwed in that area. But
Right.
everything. But he doesn't want me around. He wants to spend time playing his video games. He wants to spend time reading. He wants to spend time with his friends. So he doesn't need me as much anymore.
Yeah.
And now I have more time. I can now go back to doing the things that I love doing, that brought me joy and gave me passion. And I mean, that's what everything did before that. All of that I did, I never saw it as a burden. I never saw it as a problem because it was my passion.
So when you, because you just had your grand opening for your newest iteration of your e-commerce store, Satan Me, and that is available now. Everyone can go check it out, satanme.com. That had been in development for a little while. And in your absence, there were a number of other alternatives that sprang up that people could visit. Some of them had something to do with the organization or at least membership. Others didn't. And so when you had set it all aside to raise your son, as was the right thing to do, and you're planning on coming back, and you come back and you see that there is, yes, competition, and that this is not going to be an open ground, if it ever was in the first place, of just, pure monopoly on your side. How do you face that? Like, what is your plan, your strategy to come in and really define yourself in this new space?
Having the competition first off isn't, ever a problem.
Right.
I've honestly believe that, any, I guess, store that basically does the only thing is a monopoly, and, it can cause problems. If you handle it right, it doesn't necessarily cause problems. I always look at myself as competition. I want to outdo myself.
Mm-hmm.
I make a quality product. I want to make a better quality product because I want to outdo that. I want to be proud of myself and the things that I do. When these other stores popped up, and again, organizational or not, and there were a ton of non-organizational stores that popped up, and those were my main issue, because the COS Emporium, when it was around, was pretty much the only game in town. Mm-hmm. From my love of technology and things like, in my ability to understand technology, I was able to take the technology at the time and spin it and make it work for me, whereas other people did not have that ability all the time. And it took a lot of money back then to develop something like that if you didn't know how to do it yourself. Mm-hmm. But then once technology is caught up, Shopify, all of these online easy store places that you can, resell, these pre-made T-shirts that some other company does, but it looks like you're selling it. Mm-hmm. They popped up everywhere. And they were ripping off the organization's, trademark symbol. They were ripping off, our phrases, our images of doctor symbol. It got annoying, and it got saddening because it wasn't really there when the Emporium was. Mm-hmm. So you had pride in that aspect that we were doing it right. That we were doing it so well that other people weren't really able to do it or didn't want to. Mm-hmm. But then I disappeared. I shut the Emporium down for, the reasons I stated. And I figured, and I had no problem with it, that, again, someone's going to come in and fill the void. That is to be expected. And, would love it if, someone could step up and do it right and, whatever. Even non-organizational people, if the store was right and they handled it in a respectful way, I could at least respect that aspect of it, as long as they didn't rip stuff off. But no one did. The non-organizational people were just was sickening that they were just ripping stuff off and they were bashing the organization. And I mean, this is where we started this.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it came from, and yet you got to spin it your way and not give respect where respect is due. It made me sick. So, now that I have the ability to come back, I can do it better than them. I can bring the passion back. I can make it more than just a store. And that's all they're doing is they're selling their knockoff Baphomet pins and whatever and t-shirts and stuff. And it's just a store. You literally go to it. It's just a list of products and blah, blah, blah. There's no passion to it. There's no feeling. Mm-hmm. And that's what Satan Me is going to become. And that's what it was started as. That's why I spun it into Satan instead of the Emporium, or I wanted to make it more personal. I wanted to make it less of a store, less of just come here and buy a Baphomet this and a Baphomet that. Mm-hmm. At the current point in time, it's only been running for 2 months. And we've accomplished a great deal, but it's going to take a little bit more time for me to unfold my grandiose scheme.
See, you've got to be doing this while you say that.
Yeah, my grandiose idea. Bringing it to what I envision it in I've already got, I can tell you what it looks like in 5 years already, because I know what it's going to be in 5 years. Yeah. I just need to get there. And it's going to take a little bit of time. Right now, the main goal of the site is to basically bring the products back that the Emporium used to have. Mm-hmm. The Emporium had a bazillion products. And I still started out with, I had all those products still available, a large quantity of them. I kept them, so we were able to start that way. But now, coming into it, we have, as of right now, within the next 2 months, we have dozens of new products already in the works. And some are already shipping in, and some of them are going to be shipping shortly. Some of them are still being produced. Mm-hmm. We have so much stuff going on.
Hell yeah.
And you're going to start to see this unfold. Mm-hmm. And then once it's populated and the products are there, that's when I can take it to the next phase. And that's where the personalization, the lifestyle, where it's also we're going to pull in other members. Because that's what the Emporium was known for back then, was you could get, Magister Lang's handcrafted Ammon statue. You could get this piece of artwork from this member. LaRue Delachey's CDs, I ended up producing them for him because his music is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So I take the ability to these members who, instead of having them sit there and focus all their time on trying to sell the thing and market the thing and do the thing, I just want to give them the time to be able to create.
Yeah.
I will take care of everything else for you. I want you to create that cool thing because I appreciate it and I respect it, and it gives me something. Mm-hmm. And I don't want you to waste all your time doing all the other junk, because then you can't create. So I'll take care of that for you. And that's what Satan Me is going to also become. That's what the Emporium was, and Satan Me will do the same thing.
Nice.
And we'll get to that point. And then we're also going to add in, more lifestyle-based stuff. We're going to make it more of not just a store. Mm-hmm. It is going to be something you're going to be proud to be a part of. It's Satan Me. It's you, it's me, it's all of us. It's going to be all of us. It's not just going to be Amazon.
Yeah. The complexity of the internet and site authority has changed in the last 5 years more than it's changed in the last 10 preceding it, and more in the last 2 than in the last 5. Are you concerned at all, or do you feel like you have your hands wrapped around the online marketing side of it? because again, it is different than it used to be.
Oh, it is, yeah. But you know, technology is always going to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 5 years from now, it's going to be insane compared to the 5 years it was this time. 5 years from that, I mean, we're not even going to have computers.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be all VR in our heads, whatever, on our wrist. I'll have to figure out how to make the website.
One word at a time.
Well, I'll get it there and make it. But again, starting from when I was 13 and building that first computer and not having a manual, and each of the cards literally had what's called dip switches, and you had to have them in the right configuration in order to make that card or that, you know, motherboard work correctly. And when you don't have a manual or the internet yet, it took a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me 3 months to make that machine boot, and I worked on it every day for 3 months. But that's the passion that I've developed with technology. I mean, from there, I have dug into everything. And I believe that that passion is what allows me to progress and adapt with whatever changes technology brings. So, you know, whatever new technology or shopping experience or marketing experience or, you know, communications experience, I'll be there and I'll make it work because it's what I want. It's my passion. It's what I enjoy.
I love that. Yeah. Well, again, we already mentioned satanme.com. You can go check it out not right now after the show. Go check it out. Again, come back because it is something that he is actively developing, you know, day by day. I do want to talk about IRQ. Oh my gosh. Elijah in the chat room is mentioning IRQs. I remember that.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about SatanNet proper. So there was a version of SatanNet that was pretty recent, but you sort of gave it a facelift and overhaul. What is new about this new iteration that wasn't already there?
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, the letters to the devil, SatanNet evolved into the Undercroft, which was the social networking version of it. That evolved more from a privacy issue than anything. Facebook had come into effect. Facebook became very popular, and everybody used Facebook. The problem with Facebook, and that everyone, and I mean, anybody can search for the hundreds of millions of articles, and they don't even lie to you about it.
Yeah.
Facebook,
there's congressional hearings about it.
Everything you speak in your phone, every website you visit, there is a cookie that gets laid down, and all of a sudden you get an advertisement for that damn thing. I mean, it started to blow my mind that I'm having conversations with my wife, and we're talking about this something or other, or this fangled thing, and then I go to check my Facebook, and I have an ad for that thing. And I'm like, but I didn't even search for it. You know, they've had so much controversy with tapping your microphone, and, you know, they do it. Amazon does it. I mean, everybody does it. If you use your phone for anything you don't want anybody to see, then stop using your damn phone, because I think they're all watching. But I got tired of it because everybody started using Facebook, and that's where all the Satanists migrated to, and, you know, the groups and the everything. And I don't, just because of the fact of being through the Satanic Panic and seeing how crazy, I mean, I went to court and defended Satanism during the Satanic Panic. It got very personal, and I mean, people come after you. It's no joke. They show up at your house, and they're, you know, Christians that are ready to kill you because you are the devil. I don't want my information that available. And with everyone else going to it, I wanted to provide them with something that they could go to instead of having privacy concerns.
Hmm.
They can come to the Undercroft. Ever since I started this, I have always stated that no information is ever read. No information will ever be kept about you. Anything you want your account deleted, when I click delete, your existence is wiped. Because I don't care. I don't want the information. But these companies do, and these companies have no problem giving your information to somebody else. Mm-hmm. That person can actually want to harm you and use your information for bad things. I mean, this day and age, security is a huge problem. So I wanted to provide a place where you don't have to worry about that. Mm-hmm. Because I worried about it. And that's why I use Facebook basically just for marketing purposes. And, there'll be a little communication here and there, but I will never, ever personally really communicate with anybody on Facebook. Because I don't want their message read. They don't need to read it.
Yeah.
I want to secure, and that's what letters the devil, that's what, I had my own messaging system for SatanNet for a while. I mean, that's what the Baphomet phone was for. It was so we could have communication without having to work. We could spend more time collaborating, spend more time having fun, spend more time just being us.
Yeah.
And not everyone who's listening on the other end or what piece of information puts out.
I can certainly appreciate that. So the URL is satannet.com. The site is the Undercroft, and it's open to anyone who wants to go. Is there like a checkpoint of approval or anything, or is it just pretty much log in and go?
It's similar to Letters to the Devil. There's moderation, but it's also similar to the aspect that the user can moderate their own account also, because in order for you to see anything from Joe Blow who joins the site, he has to be a friend. I mean, it's similar to how Facebook's thing enters. Right. You still have to be friends in order for your information to be seen. So you don't have to worry about posting something and everyone on the site being able to read that. It's only the people you let into your profile. Right. And then again, if someone causes a problem, they're removed and they're blocked, they're banned. It doesn't matter. Whereas Facebook, they just don't ever delete anybody because they want the numbers. Mm. I don't care about the numbers. It's all cool.
Yeah, I think this is an incredibly important option to be available because if anyone has paid any attention to politics or data collection over the past even just 3 years, that it's been going on much longer than 3 years, but it is ramped up to a fever pitch. And if you have any sense of security, and I know not a lot of people nowadays do, and a lot of people just don't care anymore, but if you do have any sense of wanting to protect your own information and data, well, the Undercroft is a wonderful option for that. I'm one of those people that we had opened the conversation with that is terrible in social media. And I find myself falling into pitfalls and becoming a person that I don't like. And so I just do my best to stay away. It's hard, but I do it. What's that?
That's the best thing you can do.
Yeah. But it's nice to know that this option is available where it is going to be like Minds. It is going to be in a secure space. And that it's produced by you, someone who's been doing this for years and years and understands the complexity and what is required to maintain it properly and to run it effectively and to see it grow and grow as we've mentioned technology changes. So I think that's fantastic. So there's SatanNet, there's SatanMe, and every other tertiary project that you may have under your hat that you haven't shared.
You should see my domain list that I own. It's quite
it's wild. Well, I think that's a good place to stop it. Is there anywhere you want to share that people can find you other than your two websites? In social media, do you want to connect outside, or do you just want to kind of drive them into your sites?
No, trust me. If you want to find me, you can find me.
Well, I genuinely appreciate your time and your candor and your willingness to share so much about yourself and your experience in this online world. that you've really helped shape for a lot of Satanists. So thank you very much.
I thank you. And, I have enjoyed the interviews that you have given in the past, which was, one of the main reasons that I agreed to my first interview in 22 years. And I am so out of practice. It's quite sad.
I think you did great.
One of our interviews, we talked about the lining on the inside of the egg and how that related to Jesus.
What the fuck?
And the dude was so drunk. It was a call-in interview show. Guy was so drunk from like Kentucky, and it was insane. The lining of the egg on the inside in Jesus. It was hilarious.
Weird.
It was a good one.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah. But I enjoy the way your interviews are going and how ad hoc they are and how comfortable it is. And, it was definitely where I wanted to start with this.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
It was.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping we can have you come on again. I would love to get some of those other stories that we weren't able to get to today, or maybe just talk about technology or something.
You want to make this a weekly thing? Because I got enough stories to keep you going for months. I mean, we can go to season 3, episode 4.
Yeah. It'll just be serialized. It'll be all right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you again. And to the audience, thank you guys so much. Dennis, I'm sorry I didn't get to all your comments. You did mention one that I want to bring up before I close the show down here. Dennis says he's such a huge fan of these sites that we're speaking to. He had no idea that you were behind it all. And to think one man made such high quality and groundbreaking work is amazing to him. And that is a sentiment that I know is echoed by a lot of people. So thank you, Dennis, for saying so. And I don't know. I just thought you should, see that if you hadn't caught it yet. Everyone who jumped in and became part of the conversation and answered questions that we weren't able to get to, thank you guys so much for your interaction. It really does mean a lot. Subscribe to the channel, sign up to the email list, and you'll get to know when we chat again and what we're going to be chatting about. And that's really it. So until we can speak of the devil again, my friends, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.